This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Use code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. Something I wanted to ask you about, and this is one that always bothers me, and I get these dudes that reach out to me all the time, Justin, that talk about gear, and it always seems to be like the smallest dudes that are taking the most shit, man.
It is, yeah. Well, there's just only so much it can do. It's not magic. You can take 100 Anadrol a day. The Anadrol doesn't do anything. The Anadrol is increasing protein synthesis.
Protein synthesis. Yeah.
So like I try to think of ways to make analogies that kind of make it to simplify it, because there's like chemicals and stuff. There's a lot going on. You can think about it. Say your body's a house. You're trying to build a house, right? So now your training would be like the general contractor or the foreman. He's telling everyone where to go. We're training chest, which means we're telling everyone to work on this part of the house today. And then the gear, the anabolics would be like the number of workers you have. So the more you take more gear, you're going to have more workers, and they can get more done, provided that there's more materials. And the lumber and the nails and the things like that is the food. And so if you don't supply the food, it doesn't matter how many workers you have, and it doesn't matter how good your foreman is at delegating them. They need the materials, and they all work together. So you need the training, you need the foreman telling you, we're working on this part of the house, this is the layout, this is the structure, and it needs to be organized so there's no waste. And that's your training, and then you take the anabolics, that's your workers. We got a lot of workers working on it. And now we need to supply the materials, the lumber, that's your food. And if we supply enough of that we put all the workers to good use, it's going to dramatically increase progress on the home build. But if you don't supply the materials, and those workers are just standing around doing nothing. And that's what the gear does. We don't have the diet in mind. The gear's just floating around your system doing nothing, ready to build muscle, but it doesn't have the lumber.
Yeah, I've stolen that analogy from you. That's a good one. I've used it with quite a few people, but I get these guys all the time that are 165 pounds, taking 2-3 grams of gear. And then I talk to them about the diet, and they're not even doing shit. I mean, I'm like, you're putting additional load on your system for nothing. Yeah.
And that's fine. I won't even tell you not to take whatever you want. You're an adult. You want to, I don't care, be unhealthy, do it. But why are you taking that? Think of what it does. It increases protein synthesis. Are you supplying the nutrients to allow that to be increased?
Yeah. And I tell guys that more does work, but it's relative to what you're putting in your body. And there is, like you said, talk about bell curve, there is a curve to this too, where you, I think there is a saturation point where you hit, and then just the side effects start stacking up more than the actual additional benefit does.
Yes.
And I know you work with I know you've worked with a lot of guys that have been pros and stuff in the past, but generally the guys that I've talked to, unless they're lying to me, are all like taking somewhere between 2 and 3 grams of gear a week.
It's the same. Yeah. I mean, you'll get a couple outliers, but
real basic shit.
It's always the same. And the reason it's like that 2 to 3 grams, it's not that they decide on that. It's an analogy to this would be like incomplete if humans eat incomplete proteins only, we'll die eventually. And so like rice is incomplete protein and beans are an incomplete protein, but if you combine beans and rice, it forms a complete protein. So cultures that didn't eat a lot of meat eat a lot of beans and rice. Why? Not because they chose it, it's because the ones that didn't combine those died, and it's right. The same kind of the same thing. It's not that they decided, it's not like some noble morality thing, like I'm not going to take more than 3 grams. It's that they tried it, and what happened? They got test flu. They were achy. They were welted up everywhere. They were lethargic. They had no appetite. All they wanted to do was sleep. They were achy. They couldn't train. They were running a fever. If you're running a fever, you want to sleep all day. You can't eat, and you have no energy to train. If you can't train, you can't eat. What is the gear going to do? And so that's why they fall in that range. It's just that's the range. That's the kind of the maximum number that doesn't start producing those negative side effects.
I one time, just to try it. One time I tried 2 grams of test by itself, and it just made me sick as fuck, man.
Yeah.
I felt like I was going to die.
Actually, I use that as a pregnancy protocol. If you get so much free test floating through the body, I think that it directly stimulates the Leydig cells to reproduce sperm on its own. There's just so much influx. And that seems to happen around 2 grams of test. and ask anyone who's tried it, what's the hardest thing about the 2 grams of test protocol? The feeling like shit. You feel like you're right on the verge of a fever. You feel like you almost had the flu, but not quite. You want to do nothing but sleep. You're waterlogged and achy. You can't squat because you've got such a, you get a lower back pump brushing your teeth, and so yeah, you'll see guys you think, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get pregnant and grow. This is awesome. No, you don't grow because now you're really struggling to get food down. You're so bloated. You feel full all the time.
Dude, I remember I was getting horrible calf pumps just walking into my house, like going up my stairs. I'd have to sit down walking up my stairs, and my calves would be cramped up from.
You do that, like you started that pregnancy walk.
Oh my God, it was horrible. So, and I know you and I talked about it with what I'm doing. It you said where I'm at is suboptimal. I don't even use that much. I think relatively.
You're a little lower. Yeah, you're on the low end. It really. And it's different for everyone, but it seems like most people, it's a little closer to the 3 gram. I hate, that's kind of, most people can get to that level. It's almost always like around 2 grams of test, and you're going to start getting test flu. And so, you get to like 1,800 tests, 1,600 Promobon or something like that. You're maxed out pretty much.
I mean, my thing is I have no illusions of being a pro at my age. And, I'm just doing this for the fuck of it.
Well, I wouldn't say no. I mean, Masters Nationals turned pro. I wouldn't say no chance at all. I think you have a very, very good one if you want to.
Well, maybe. I'm going to be 50 soon, so maybe I can compete with the really old guys.
It's not the 50. That's the thing. Masters ain't no joke. Half the time, the 40 class is harder or worse than the Open. If the only reason it's different is because some guys just do the Masters, but a lot of times 40, the guy that wins the 40 class, 40 and over, wins the Open anyways.
Well, the dude that kicked my ass in the show last summer, I think he got 3rd in Masters Nationals, and he was in his mid-50s.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing what you can do if you're intelligent about things. There's age. Yeah, 50 ain't what 50 was when we were kids. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I try to mitigate the other health factors. I thought about pushing a little bit harder, but I'm just like, I'm making progress. So and I'm like, how much more progress would I've made if I pushed it harder?
It's the thing. You can. I like to do the numbers with things like that because you can kind of do the math and you say like, okay, well, how much of a difference would it be? Like 1%? It's like, well, yeah, I want that 1%. But if you really do the math. Ronnie Coleman was 300 pounds in shape. What's 1% of 300 pounds? 3 pounds. Does Ronnie Coleman look different at 297
no.
than he does at 300? You know what I mean? So it's like, so what's the cost, the risk analysis? Is it worth, hopefully getting that 1%, but potentially ruining everything? It's probably not. If you got a good thing going, keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather be able to sustain it for a few more years. I think, and that's the thing I keep telling guys is that I think it's a long haul, man. You have to play the long game with this shit. Yeah. Maybe it was you or somebody else that used the example of Big Ramy, but you look at him over, I think it was like a 6 or 7 year period.
Yeah, he comprehensive performance nutrition too. Yeah. No human on earth grew as fast as Big Ramy grew. He went from 220 pounds in like 2004, maybe. I can't remember. It was a 4-year span, whatever it was. I think it was like a 4-year span. He went from 220 to like 300-pound mass monster Big Ramy. And so it looks like he blew up overnight, obviously, he went from like 220-pound gym rat to the biggest human on earth in like 4 years or 5 years. But if you break it down by the numbers,
it's like 1.5 pounds a month or something like that.
Yeah, less. I think it was even less than that. Yeah, it's like, it was like 1.5 pounds a month, less than 20 pounds a year. And that's what people don't get. Is it even? Well, Nick Walker's another example. Nick Walker blew up overnight. I mean, who has grown faster than Nick Walker? He probably grew faster than Big Ramy. Look at a picture of him from 2012.
I know, he looked like shit.
Yeah, and so he was busting his ass then, a decade ago, And so these guys want to look bigger next year. Nick Walker did it over 10 years, and no one has done it faster than that. So you think you're going to do it faster, you might want to rethink things. Maybe you will, but even then, what are you going to do in 9 years? It's still going to get done in 18 months.
This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Use code AB10 at checkout for 10% off.